X compact digital treadmill in 2 easy payments of 200,000 naira. That's right. Pay twice and get this amazing fitness solution. If you order now, you get the Sport X compact digital treadmill delivered to you for free wherever you are in Nigeria. But hurry, limited stock available.
The preceding was a paid presentation brought to you by Showbiz TV.
Vice President Kashim Shettima asks Nigerians to be fair in assessing the performance of President Bola Tinubu, assures that the president is doing his best for the common good of all. Your approach to minimum wage negotiation is dictatorial. Nigeria Labour Congress tells state governors who are arguing that subnationals should be allowed to pay based on their capacity. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Tracking the polity is always our responsibility. And today we'll take a look at the state of the nation, exactly what is going on in Nigeria. How are you faring, by the way? First, we must say our hearts and our thoughts are with those who were affected by that fire incident in the nation's capital, Abuja. We hope that there could be some level of intervention in the coming days to all of the people who lost property, we understand, worth millions of naira. The president has also spoken about this, and he said he will give them their support. So our prayers and our thoughts are with them to ensure that, they have the capacity to bear this very, very painful loss, given the already difficult economic situation of the country. As much as possible, all that is needed to support them should be provided within the capacity of those whose responsibility it is. But let's also tell you that the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, is asking Nigerians to be fair in their assessment of President Bola Tinubu's leadership, whom he says is working hard to make the country great. The Vice President made the appeal at a one-day town hall meeting organized by the Presidential Enabling Environment, Business Environment Council, held at the banquet hall of the State House in Abuja. Vice President Shettima believes the current economic challenges in the country are not the making of the president, but global phenomenon, while describing President Tinubu as a man of idea, robustly imbued with leadership capacity. Senator Shettima believes Nigeria has never been blessed with leadership like now and urges Nigerians to support the president.
That is so good in terms of leadership. The president means well for the nation. And most importantly, he is imbued with the skill set to drive change and progress in this country. I can tell you with all sense of confidence that the president we have now is a man of ideas who is robustly imbued with the capacity. Leadership is about competence. We are not asking you not to question the eligibility of your president's condition. But there is this mischievous fixation on the president's health status. We are not preparing for the Olympics, but an institution that builds on the superiority of ideas. But idea, to put it to you, that the hallmark of true leadership is not the ability to lift a bag of cement, but the capacity to come up with robust ideas to solve a nation's problems. So this is a man that we need to all rally around. We need to support. Yes, our economy is going through turbulence, but is it confined to Nigeria alone? Let's talk a global picture. Is any economy immune from the challenges of the times? So I urge you, to be fair to this poor man.
That's not all. The dispute over the new minimum wage may just have shifted to a battle between the Nigeria Labour Congress and governors who are proposing that the states should be allowed to pay based on their capacity. The NLC describes that position of subnationals headed by the governors as not only dictatorial, but also undermines the model adopted for creating a national minimum wage in Nigeria. The NLC, in a statement by its head of Information and Public Affairs, Mr. Benson Upa, insists that the concept of a national minimum wage is not arbitrary. It's both a national wage floor and a baseline below which no worker should be allowed to be paid. The statement reads in part, it is important to remind the governors that the national minimum wage is not synonymous with individual pay structures of states, which they implement religiously, reflecting their unique financial capabilities and circumstances. The governor's argument appears inconsistent when juxtaposed with remuneration of political office holders. Now, the Labour Union maintains that it is committed to protecting the rights and welfare of the Nigerian workers while asking the governors to shelve their approach to that negotiation. All right, so for context, the president said a lot of things yesterday at the NEC meeting. We're going to explore that at some point on the program, some of the highlights of the things he said. But the issue of minimum wage is still a very, very tense issue. Everybody is walking around it quite carefully. And so Labour is putting out this front to say, if you're planning to allow states to negotiate based on capacity, that will not work for us. But we're tracking other political stories in your political roundup stories.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has met with the leadership of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, over the issue of tenure of area council chairmen in the FCT. There has been a heated debate among political parties about when the tenure of the incumbent council chairmen, who were elected in 2022, will expire. Some hold the view that the council chairman cannot benefit from the amended electoral laws, which specify that area council chairmen and their councillors will have a 4-year tenure from the date they were sworn in. The IPAC chairman is leading a delegation of other leaders of political parties to clarify this matter with the INEC chairman.
This is one of the important provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. The Act came into force on Friday, 25th February 2022, 2 weeks after the last area council elections in the FCT.
To Imo State, where Governor Hope Uzodinma says his government will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that the current hardship faced by the people over fuel subsidy removal is reduced to the barest. The governor disclosed this at the swearing-in of 5 new commissioners at the government house in Owerri, the state capital. According to him, it's not going to be business as usual, as his pursuit to entrench good governance and prosperity for the people of the state remains his priority.
As part of our effort for improved service to Imo State, and then the rebuilding of our great economy, we'll continue to support the administrative infrastructure by way of injecting new blood into the system.
Meanwhile, the Director General of the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, wants adequate legal framework to be put in place before the establishment of state police in Nigeria. Speaking in Abuja at the opening ceremony of the National Dialogue on State Policing in Nigeria, Professor Suleiman notes that putting these measures in place will prevent the abuse of system by the state governors. He agrees that state police will empower local authorities to effectively address security challenges.
It has been argued that the establishment of state police may empower local authorities to address these challenges more effectively, ensuring quicker response and better understanding of local security dynamics.
A federal high court sitting in Port Harcourt, River State, has adjourned the case filed by a coalition of civil society organizations in River State, asking the court to declare the seats of Martin Amaule and 24 others vacant following their defection from the PDP to the APC. At today's hearing, there were applications brought by the PDP and APC seeking to be joined in the matter. There was a mild drama when 2 lawyers announced appearances for the PDP, one from the National Legal Advisor, while the other claimed he had the authority of the state chapter to represent the party. After deliberating on the matter, the judge adjourned the matter to the 17th of July to allow the party to harmonize their representative.
Welcome back. So those are your political roundup stories. Just before I introduce my guest, which you would like to hear from, because the responsibility was given about a year ago, is crucial to transforming the economic fortune of Nigeria. I'm talking about things that has to do with taxation. But let's tell you what happened at NEC yesterday. For those of you who may not have followed, the president gave some approvals. They call it the National Construction and Household Support Program. And there were a couple of objectives. So if I can get my first slide, almost a trillion naira has been approved for this particular phase to cushion the effect of this. So that's the objective of this National Construction and Household Support Program, to boost agriculture, manufacturing, construction, and provide urgent economic relief. If we go to the next one and break it down a little bit more, as to what the federal government is planning to do for states and household in terms of support. I say that 50,000 naira grant will be given to 100,000 families for 3 months. That maybe comes to about 15 billion. And 155 billion naira for assorted foods. Well, that's not quite clear. They will break it down maybe later on in their breakdown. And then 10 billion naira for CNG buses in 36 states and the FCT. So if you accumulate it, that's about 360 billion. And the provision of labor unions and civil provision for labor unions and civil society organization. That's a bit vague. We're not very clear on what that means. That's not all that this intervention is supposed to handle. There is also the infrastructure element of it, which is my next slide. Rail and road infrastructure priority. So you see there, Sokoto Badagry, my slide is high, Badagry Highway, Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, Trans-Saharan Highway, Port Harcourt Maiduguri Railway, Lagos Kaduna Standard Gauge Railway. So these are some of the interventions or some of the priorities of the government, some of the approvals they've given to ensure that to stimulate the economy as much as possible. So I just needed to bring you up to speed as to what happened at NEC yesterday. But all of this happened, but there was no word of minimum wage because it's a very contentious issue. But I've been joining the program this evening to talk to us about some of the reforms he's been working on and how far they've gone by the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, joins us via Zoom. Mr. Oyedele, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
I would like to start with what both the states and the federal government and everyone else has kept mum over despite all of the approvals. The minimum wage. Maybe your quick take before we go to the core issue of taxation. What do you see playing out from what you're seeing in terms of the process of negotiation? Labour is saying the governor's trying to change a bit of the narrative to allow them negotiate based on their capacity is not going to work.
Yeah, thank you. I think every Nigerian has a take on minimum wage. So clearly, I'm not going to be speaking for the government, whether it's the federal or the state government, but just my personal view on the whole minimum wage issue. First and foremost, I think it's important to acknowledge and recognize that workers need to be paid a decent wage for them to be able to work well and live well. But we also have to take into account that there are so many moving parts and very many stakeholders, including small businesses. Even if we stay within the government itself, based on the revenues for 2023, about half of that year you already had, the additional revenue from subsidy removal and naira flotation. But altogether, the revenues were, under 15 trillion naira. That's, FAC plus IGR, even including local government. So if you estimate the number of workers in Nigeria to be about 3 million, that's federal plus sub-national, and you just calculate the revenue per civil servant, it comes to about 5 million naira a year, which is about 415,000 thereabout per month. So in other words, if we decide to use all the revenue that government earns just to pay civil servants and do nothing else, you'll be talking about average of 415,000 420,000. And bear in mind that this is the average, so which means we're not even talking about the minimum wage. So you're going to be asking yourself, we need to take into account the capacity to pay. And my view is that we need to use this opportunity of minimum wage negotiation to have a rethink about our minimum wage structure. First and foremost, I do think it should be calculated based on per hour. And we need to relax some of the rules around civil service about what you can do. It should not just be limited to farming. You should be able to do more than one job, provided there's no conflict and you can give your minimum hours to the government. There's also need to be a conversation around measurable productivity. Imagine, for instance, if you're able to measure the productivity of individual civil servants on the average, or even the revenue as well, and we have a requirement that says government shall not pay you minimum wage that is less than a certain percentage of the productivity that you had. What that would do for all of us is civil servants will then start focusing on productivity because it drives their minimum wage. And otherwise, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you pay, even if it's 1 million naira per month. If it's not supported by productivity and output, give it about 2 months and the 1 million will look exactly like 30,000 naira today.
So at the core of this is the issue of revenue, as you've highlighted. The previous administration also mentioned the issue of revenue, which your committee comes in here because the whole idea of the reform is to see how much money we can get in the long run by optimization. So how much work have been done so far, and how far-reaching are we supposed to see these reforms take place? Because you've done a lot of work. We've been seeing your work, but we're waiting to see either implementation and how it will affect all of us in terms of its impact.
Yes, you're right. We've done a lot of work, quite extensive, and it's far-reaching and transformative. We had a very good meeting with the governors a couple of days ago as part of our consultation. Before then, we've met with them previously on that NEC. We've also met the commissioners, the head of internal revenue services at the federal level, state. We've met, private sector stakeholders. The work we are doing, unfortunately, when it comes to fiscal reform, it cannot be as quick, like, for example, monetary policies, because you need to make sure that your policies are driven by evidence and that you consult widely. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good your intentions are. If you don't get the prescriptions or the diagnosis right, as you say, then your prescriptions will be wrong, and then you'll not be able to heal the ailment. So we are now at a stage where we are moving from ideation to implementation. Some of our recommendations have been implemented. In fact, we have a new withholding tax regime that is meant to provide a lot of relief to particularly small businesses, and also to provide relief for even large businesses in terms of their working capital, so they can have more finances freed up for growth, given the rates of interest that we are dealing with now. So that has been signed by the Honorable Minister for Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy, because by law, we didn't need to take that to the National Assembly. So that is going through the process of gazetting, which will happen in the next few days or couple of weeks. We also have, draft legislations that are currently going through the final approvals. And then after that, by the Q3 that we're getting into now, it should go to the National Assembly. We do have a draft new national fiscal policy as well. So there's a lot that we're just getting to the stages now where, as we begin to implement, the Nigerian people will start to see the impact in a very positive way.
Is there a way, I know we have a revenue problem, given what you've done so far, is there a way to raise or generate more revenue without raising taxes that will not hurt the economy? Because we're going to come to the issue of some of those taxes.
Yes, certainly. The whole idea is that we have done, whatever we have been doing now for decades, and it hasn't produced the right results. We have over 60 different taxes and levies, but we are barely even collecting enough money to fix roads. By the way, the entire budget, that's the federal government of about 29 trillion, plus all the states in Nigeria about 15 trillion. If you add it up, comes to about 44 trillion, and that's around $30 billion. That $30 billion is even less than the budget of Kenya, which is around $32 billion. Is barely a quarter of South Africa's budget at $130 billion. And of course, it's even less than the budget of New York City, not even just New York State. So clearly, Nigeria is a poor country with the potential to be a wealthy country. So we do believe, based on the analysis we have done and the data available to us, that the right way to go is not to introduce more taxes. And in fact, if you're going to raise the rate of any tax, it has to be something that we're doing as a result of the consolidation and harmonization. We do think that having fewer taxes are broad-based, easy to collect, and do not place burden on the bottom of the ladder of society is the way to go. And by using data intelligence and technology, we can close the tax gap so that people who have not been paying before begin to pay, who have been identified as people that should be paying. And the poor people should be legitimately exempted, particularly nano, micro businesses and low-income earners. And then we think that with all those, we can easily more than double our revenue within a period of 2 to 3 years. So we are confident about the revenue mobilization capacity of the work we're doing over the medium to long term.
So let's situate this properly so that there'll be greater context and reference for the general audience. I think I read somewhere where, permit me to say, you were lamenting over the issue of the number of taxes people in sachet water, what we call pure water business pay. Maybe you would like to share that for us, because that kind of gives us an idea what Nigerians are dealing with.
Yeah, so sadly, the system we have today is trying to tax everything and everybody. If it moves, tax it. If it moves again, tax it even more. Seems to be the approach we have today. You would imagine those who are selling sachet water, that we call pure water, how much possibly can be your capital plus profit. With all the hard work, people are just trying to see if they can find 800 naira, 1,000 naira a day to take care of themselves and their families. That will cover their transports and feeding. But when we're speaking to market traders associations, they said to us, these guys are paying about 6 to 7 different levies every single day, and they give them in form of stickers. That clearly is not acceptable. We've also seen truckers who are moving produce, including food, from one state to another, having to pay, more than 450,000 naira in one single trip. Sometimes the stickers add up to more than 50. So at the end of the day, this is the reason why, for example, if you look at the last inflation numbers, even just between rural area and urban area, the difference in inflation is about 500 basis points. That's about 5%, which you can only just explain by way of transportation. But by the time you add the taxes to it, you see that it is one of the reasons why that differential is so significant. So we think that the approach to adopt is to exempt some of these vulnerable people, including sachet pure water. We also believe that we should stop asking people how much they earn so we can tax them. We should first support them to be able to grow and create wealth, and then use intelligence to tell them how much they have earned. And so that way we are sure that evasion and people who try to live above the law will be a thing of the past. That's how every decent society that we aspire to be like have been able to develop their economies.
When we look at the macroeconomic indicators, food inflation, for instance, between when the president came into now, it's about 15%. If you look at headline, it's about 11%. And then if we now look at the interest rate, maybe about 600 basis points. And so things are getting tighter and tighter. In the work you have done with your committee and all of you in that committee, what are the bottlenecks you're seeing within the system that you may want to share, that we may have to look at and maybe think differently so that all of the effort that's been put in is not gone to waste? Because I am sure that there are certain elements, perhaps, that may not want certain things to work if you're not careful at the end of the day, because for every failed system, somebody's profiting.
Yeah, that is right. I think, and that is the case in almost everywhere in the world, that there are people who want to benefit from, the mystery and the chaos of any system. So it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that that's not something that is allowed, sustained for a long period of time. But if we move a little bit away from that and look at the issues that we're dealing with, so the inflation, for example, a lot of it is structural. And like many of us have said, including me personally, I do believe that the inflation is largely cost push, not demand pull, and that the liquidity that we have in the system is concentrated in the hand of less than 2% of the population. And these members of society are just looking for returns. They're not the ones trying to buy bread and yam and gari and raising prices up. But when it comes to the structural aspects of the challenges that we face, some of it is the inflation is the exchange rate pass-through because we are largely import dependent, even for input equipment and also for food. You also have the insecurity that you have in some parts of the country, making it difficult for farmers to do what they have to do. You have the part of this structural problem that is to do with regulation, or maybe I should call it over-regulation, where we are adding a lot of cost delays and inefficiency to productivity. And we also have, in fact, some of the things we have seen is also that some manufacturers even have a pile-up of inventory that is unsold, which is speaking to the fact that the Nigerian people have less purchasing power, and therefore they're unable to even buy the basic needs that they require. So you need this concerted effort that is, coordinated and complementary between the monetary authorities, the fiscal authorities, and even the trade, authorities to ensure that we try and take out the part of this, pain that we are going through that I would call self-inflicted. Because some of those things, like the multiple taxation issue that we just spoke about a few minutes ago, is self-inflicted. We can deal with that. If you also look at issues around over-regulation, we can deal with that. So there's quite a number of things we can address and therefore begin to see a downward trend in inflation and then be able to improve the standard of living for our people. If you look at cholera today that we are dealing with, it's simply the disease of poverty because people have no access to clean water, sanitation. We even have open defecation in 2024 for millions of our people. And this is the reason why we are saying to our political leaders that we have to prioritize spending on the things that impact on our people the most, doing the greater good for the greater number of people. And that's why the work of our committee is not just focused on tax, it's focused on fiscal reforms, including spending and borrowing.
I want to go back to the National Construction and Household Support Program that I listed out. Because if you look at the federal government, when I talk about federal government now, let's include the monetary authority and the fiscal authority. There seems to be a lot of activity going on. Nigerians are not finding life funny right now. Things are tough. People are on the edge. People are on the brink of a precipice, literally. It's almost like, where are we going from here? And what we hear from the president is, give me time, give us some time. There's still hope in the future. Hope, they say, is not a strategy at the end of the day, but it keeps reassuring and all of that. But we realize that in the midst of all of these movements, all of this effort, we're not seeing the desired impact. Are we missing the bull's eye in all of the efforts being put out? And what is this bull's eye?
Yeah, so, I think everybody will recognize that these are not easy problems to solve. These are problems that we should have dealt with over a decade ago. We wasted time. And because we wasted time, it means that whenever you want to do that reform, it will come with the pain that we're unfortunately having to go through at this time. And then, I know how hard it can be for parents to wake up in the morning and have no idea where the next meal will come from. And then you have your kids staring at you almost hopelessly. It's tough. I think there's no need denying that things are really difficult. But you also have to recognize that, the fact that you want everything to just turn good immediately, we're all very impatient, including myself. You also have to recognize that that's not how things play out. So like we have the fiscal reforms that we've been talking about. There are things that will take a bit of time. You have the monetary authorities that have been trying to do a lot, from raising MPR to issues around cash reserve ratio to issues around reforms in the FS sector. But the reality is, inflation is still quite stubborn. So the question is going to be, what else do you need to do? So we know that at this point, we need a lot of the interventions to come from the fiscal side. And like I said before, we need to start addressing the structural issues that we are facing. If you take insecurity, for example, you will not be able to solve that overnight. But you can indeed make some dents in the way it's approached. You can deal with overregulation. There was a session today with PEBEC, which you also reported in your initial news today, about the reforms with various agencies. So, and more broadly, as a human being, you have to keep hope alive. The moment that you have no hope, then there's no, you are not living anymore.
All right.
So I think it's about keeping hope alive and doing the best we can, both from the private sector and the public sector, to get us out of the wood sooner rather than later.
All right, Mr. Ayatollah, I must thank you so much. The reason why I had to raise the issue of hope, and which they say is not a strategy, is because Nigerians, I doubt whether they've ever lived in a time where things went up and came down. So anytime any administration makes things to go up, there's that panic button we always push, like, you're going to kill us. So it will be interesting to see how this will taper down. The aspiration is 21% from where we are. Let's see how that happens. The prayer is that it happens, but it looks like a tall order. But I must ask you in closing, 30 seconds, please. The implementation of your reforms that you propose to the president, just to highlight it yet again, when is it taking off? Is it going to be in phases or is it going to be full-blown? And which will come first? 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, the implementation will be in phases because the extent of what we are doing, in fact, includes amending the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So some of them, like I said to you, the withholding tax regime has been signed and is going to be gazetted in a few days. Whereas some of them, like amending the Constitution, would even take more than another 1 year from today. So we have phases, implementation of fiscal policy, documents, different laws, regulations, executive orders. So it's in phases and we are sequencing them. And like I said, we are now at the point where people will start seeing the outcome of those efforts that we have been putting in for about 1 year now.
Mr. Taiwo Oyedele is the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, like every Nigerian, we can't wait for prices of goods and services to come down. So whatever it is that the government does, at the end of the day, is how things and their prices come down. When we come back after this break, has the bold economic move by President Bola Tinubu, is it hurting his presidency? Or Nigerians should keep hoping? That's a question my guest will answer after the break. Join us again.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
We dey like beans and rice. Hello people, I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time, forever, time to you, my people. Even if the road be rough, I know mine. 'Cause together we shall stand.
Make we all come out on election day and vote Olumide Osaigbavo Akpata, una guy as as governor of Edo State, he ready to change our story and bring better life for we and our pikin them. Vote Labour Party, the party for Papa, Mama and pikin. Make we vote well, oh. Oludi, confirm. Now you be our guy. Labour Party, forward ever.
It is new, it is unique and of international standard. Maduka University. Maduka University, a modern university of international standard with modern facilities for learning, committed to training entrepreneurs across different fields of human endeavor, offers admission to students in different courses such as law, accounting, medical lab science,
cyber security, mechatronics,
mass communication, nursing, pharmacy, ICT, computer engineering, civil engineering, JUBE program, and a lot more. Maduka University is located in an environment of serenity, safety and security at Ekwebe Nsukka, Enugu State. For more inquiry, visit our website madukauniversity.edu.ng or call 0805 509 1802 or 0915 789 3107. Maduka University, the place for the transformation you seek.
The Federal Ministry of Works announces the first session of the stakeholders' engagement on the proposed alignment for the construction of Section 3A in Cross River State, Section 3B and 4 in Akwa Ibom State of Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, which have a total of 145 kilometers passing through Cross River and Akwa Ibom State, as well as the design of the Cross River 92-kilometer segment of the Calabar Southeast North Central Apo Abuja Superhighway by African Trans-Sahara Highway. The event will hold on Saturday, 29th June at Ibom Hall, IBB Avenue, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, and Sunday, 30th June 2024 at Transcorp Hotel, Calabar, Cross River State. Time, 12 noon each day. Invited guests include governors of concerned states, Senate and Federal House of Representatives Committee on Works, honorable ministers of line ministries, royal fathers and technocrats, Nigerian Communications Commission and major telecommunication service providers, other relevant stakeholders and the media. We count on your cooperation in the renewed hope agenda of enhancing national connectivity and transportation flexibility for economic development. Yakubu Adam Koformata, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Works, announcer.
Tuberculosis, popularly known as TB, is an airborne disease that can be contacted by anybody regardless of age, tribe, and socioeconomic status. Despite availability of new testing equipment for TB, diagnosing TB in children is still more difficult than in adults. During the National Childhood TB Testing Week that will be taking place across the country, healthcare workers from the national and state TB programs, with support of various partners, will visit our communities to create more awareness and conduct screening and testing for TB among children. TB is treatable and curable only if detected early. Every child's life matters. Let us join hands together and end TB among our children and in Nigeria. Thank you. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The Military Pension Board is pleased to announce the commencement of electronic verification exercise for military pensioners, which will take place from 1st July to 30 September 2024. Pensioners can carry out the verification from the comfort of their homes. using a mobile device without the need to gather for physical verification. To carry out the verification, pensioners are required to download the Military Pensions Board electronic verification app named MPB Verification from the Google Play Store for Android phone users or the App Store for iPhone users. The application will take pensioners through a verification process using their National Identification Number NIN or Driver's License Number and Bank Verification Number BVN. For a successful verification, pensioners should ensure that the names on their BVN and NIN or driver's license are the same as those on the MPB database. The exercise will run for the period of 3 months only. Pensioners who are unable to complete their verification by 30 September 2024 would have their pensions suspended. Therefore, pensioners are advised to carry out their verification within the stipulated period. Management Announcer.
Welcome back. I'm being joined on the program by public affairs analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. He joins us from Abuja studio. Mr. Ojo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure. Good evening, Geoffrey.
As an aside, I don't know whether you had the opportunity to watch the presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now, there's an argument between what age can do to someone, or the issue of age, as well as the issue of credibility in terms of the records that Donald Trump pushes out. So on one hand, people are worried about the health status of Joe Biden also, but Donald Trump seems strong. But they fact-check him, saying that some of the things he said, you have to check again. But that's not my question. My question actually is, shouldn't we, given what has played out yesterday night, it's now clear to the voters and to even politicians as to the kind of decision they will make who will be their candidate. Whether they go on with it or not is a different kettle of fish. But in Nigeria, it's not a culture. Don't you think we should adopt this so that we have a feel of the people we're voting for, whether as a president or governor? Some governors won't show up. Our president did not do much of TV appearances, apart from the one he did in Chatham House and a few others locally and all of that.
Well, unfortunately, there is no law that compels presidential candidates to make themselves available for debate. It's not in any of our law, not in the Electoral Act, not in the Constitution. So it's their prerogative whether they want to feature or not. Even yesterday's or this morning's debate in U.S., which I was privileged to watch, I knew, I mean, people were saying, Joe Biden, you asked for this, but you perform below par. So you could see that even the one that is reluctant to accept the challenge is the one that triumphed, according to the polls, after the debate. And of course, there are concerns that are being raised now on the need to substitute Joe Biden, given that he was stuttering, he was losing his train of thought, and people are worried. A president that sometimes allegedly falls down after picked up at 81, whether he actually doesn't deserve to go and rest. He's done enough in public service. He's been in the Senate of U.S. since 1976 or thereabout. For over 30 years, he was in the Senate representing Delaware. Then he got elected alongside with Joe and Barack Obama for 8 years. Now he's doing his 4th year as the president. I think that is a public service that one should be proud of. But I'm not too sure. If it were to be my father, I would have asked Joe Biden to voluntarily withdraw from the race. And in as long as there's still a window for substitution, it possibly should allow somebody who is younger and more vibrant to run the race. It's not too late to know when to quit. Because he's doing this
my apologies, Mr. Ojo. My apologies, Mr. Ojo, so that I can get as many questions to you as possible. I just need to highlight that, given the fact that maybe we need to adopt it into our laws, where it will be mandatory for presidential candidates and governorship candidates to come out and share their thoughts, articulate their thoughts to us so that we'll make a decision. Because if that did not happen, people have been saying a lot. Maybe you wouldn't have seen what happened yesterday. I know governors who, no matter how much you invite them, no matter the national platform, they would not show up to talk about this. But that's America's issue. Let's come to our own issue in Nigeria, which is the first question I want to ask you. When the president made those bold decisions to remove subsidy as well as unify the exchange rate flotation, or the Naira flotation rather, it was hailed that he was brave and bold. But do you think that, looking back now 1 year after, that is hurting his presidency?
Definitely it's hurting his presidency. I was one of the very few Nigerians who gave him thumbs up for removing the subsidy. But it dawned on me that he didn't do his own work properly. Perhaps with the benefit of hindsight, instead of announcing on his day of inauguration that subsidy is gone, he could have used the period between that May 29 and the end of June 2023 to do some audit of the state of preparedness of Dangote refinery and the Port Harcourt refinery that was under turnaround maintenance. Because as it has happened now, our political office holders have been lying to us about the state of that Port Harcourt refinery. They said ab initio that it was going to be ready by December 2022. Then they said first quarter of 2023. Then second quarter of 2023. And then the next thing you had is, by the end of 2023. All of these have been missed. Now we are approaching the third quarter of 2024. And mom is the word from Port Harcourt refinery. So if you're having this challenge of reform, how then do you withdrew the subsidy, knowing full well that this is a product that is inelastic. Inelastic in the sense that you cannot do without it. There's no substitute for it. More so with the epileptic state of electricity, people are duty bound to buy fuel to power their generator or their grinding machine, or one way or the other, even if you do not have a car. Now, the president didn't do that own work. He just relied on the handover note, and perhaps with the briefing he received from the civil servant, and he took that decision. Now he's hurting him, because the approval rating of his presidency in his first year is very, very low. Very, very low. And he said we should not pity him. Then the floating of the Naira is another ill-thought, ill-timed exercise in my own view. You want Naira to find its level. And I must also say, before I forget, that these are Bretton Woods institutions' prescriptions. These are prescriptions from World Bank and IMF. Oh, remove subsidy. Oh, remove, float your Naira or float your currency. You know, even after the electricity subsidy removal for band-aid customers, the IMF is still telling Nigerian government to remove subsidy completely from electricity. So you could see how this is hurting the presidency of President Tinubu. And of course, I've said it on several media platforms. If you listen to these Bretton Woods institutions and you do not see it, you do not see what you are being told, you will risk unrest in your country. Look at what's playing out in Kenya. They want to increase taxes. There is rising cost of living. The president went to U.S. Allegedly, they said he spent 200 million Kenyan shillings to visit U.S. He came out and debunked it and said he only paid 10 million Kenyan shillings. But the rising cost of living, the fact that more people are dropping under the poverty line has made it. I mean, I saw the footage today. Over 1 million people marching on the streets of Nairobi and giving President William Ruto sleepless nights. Just a few days ago, some people died when police allegedly shot live bullets into the protesters. While that bill on the raising of tax was being considered. So we do not. If you do not want to risk that in Nigeria, we know there have been several protests in Nigeria, even in the course of this year. But luckily, President Tinubu has been has not had the kind of protest that is going on in Kenya on his hand, and I pray he doesn't have it, which is why I will commend him for this economic relief package that was rolled out yesterday, and it will be like it saw my mind. On Wednesday, in my column in the Punch newspaper, I wrote about the challenges of food security and safety. And I raised a number of questions. And I asked what the state governments are doing in terms of supporting the federal initiative in food production. Now the president has given 7 days within which all the 36 states and FCT should give him their plan for increase in food production. 7 days. He wants to know areas that he could support them to achieve. And I've also taxed Nigerian military, including Nigerian police. They should not think their job ends with physical security, making sure that there is an end to banditry and all of that. A section of Nigerian military can also go into farming to increase food production, because they will be able to police and ensure security for those farms. No bandits will dare go near such farms that is owned by the Nigerian military or Nigerian police. And that's my motive for saying that they should also participate in farming activity.
I think I have just about 5 or 7 minutes to end the show. So let me throw in a few more questions. And I'm happy you mentioned the issue of subnationals. They've gotten extra monies now with the removal of fuel subsidy. We see monies being shared in trillions now. So more money for them. The president has also approved 10 billion for CNG buses. Remember, there was a 5 billion approved before now for food, but they released 3 billion and all of that. All of this intervention, given what we've seen that happen with the humanitarian ministry, does this really move the needle? Does it really work?
Well, I mean, Geoffrey, sincerely speaking, I think the federal government is just playing, I don't want to say they are playing Ludo or they are playing ladder, scale and ladder. If you go back in time, President Tinubu, in his July 31st nationwide broadcast, that was when he first moved the idea of infrastructural support fund for states. I didn't hear him say he has given X amount or Y amount to any of these 36 states. That was when he talked about CNG buses. On July 31st, he talked about CNG buses that he said by March 2024, I think it's 3,000 CNG buses will be procured and distributed. Now it will be like a photo phase. If I can, I hope I'm right on that pronunciation, that he has recounted. Now he wants to give 10 billion to each of these states to go and procure CNG buses. So if this had been well thought out ab initio, then you will not have raised Nigerians' hope that there is any CNG buses coming between August and March 2024. Because we haven't seen any of these CNG buses on Nigerian roads. So it will be like a rethink that, okay, let me give this 10 billion to all the 36 states and let them go and procure their own CNG buses. Now he has also pledged some money for purchase of about 155 billion for procurement of grains. And where are you going to procure these grains? You are not producing enough. Now, when you want to import these foodstuffs, whether you are talking of grain, rice from Thailand or from wherever, or you want to bring in maize from Niger, you are not going to use Naira. That will also bring pressure on the Nigerian currency. That is why food importation has been bad for us. Under Buhari, we were told that we are spending over $1 billion on food importation. Now, this federal government initiative that, okay, go and procure, go and buy this 155 billion naira worth of grains. Where are those grains from? Where are you going to buy when you are not producing enough? So definitely you are going to make smuggling to be attractive, because what will then happen is that many people who could not meet the local demand, the local purchase demand, will go outside of the country and see whether they can get it through the illegal entry means. Because going far to Thailand, to India, to Malaysia to get some of these grains will take longer period, and then you are going to use foreign exchange to buy those food items, and definitely that will bring pressure on the foreign exchange, which we do not have in good quantities. So I am of the considered view that government needs, but I will commend Tinubu for at least this consultation. As was said in the report, this is the first time he's attending National Economic Council meeting. It has always been chaired by his Vice President, Kashim Shettima, but he took time off to go and attend and chair that meeting yesterday and gave a marching order. But you see, none so deaf as those who will not hear. It's one thing to give order, to make pronouncement, but from history, even in the last 1 year, there have been several orders that have been flouted by the people he gave those orders to.
If I may butt in, okay, you landed on your thought. Just 30 seconds so that we wrap this up. Is President Tinubu doing a good job as president of Nigeria so far, in your view? 30 seconds.
It's a very dicey thing to say, right, yes or no. He's doing his best, but he needs better coordination. And that's why I'm not seeing much of the input of the 48 ministers that he has appointed. And then the consultation with the subnationals has been very shallow at best. It's not been very deep. This is the kind of consultation that should have led, that should have nosedived into declaration of state of emergency on food security, which he did on June 13, 2023. If he had carried the state along before making that declaration about on the emergency on school food security, perhaps we will not be in this kind of situation that is just giving them 7 days within which to come up with a roadmap or blueprint. But let's commend him for what he has done. He's trying his best. He's trying to roll out some relief packages like the 50,000 for 100,000 families out of every of the 36 states. It's also a welcome development. 50,000 for 100,000 families in 36 states and FCT.
We're totally out of time.
Families. And we're
totally out of time.
That would be a good thing.
Implementation is how we will assess how well or not well at the end of the day. Well, thank you, Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, joining us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
That's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. God bless the Federal Republic.